I'd been out on the road, lonely at night, and it'd been a while.
Ella Langley didn't chart a single, win an award, or trend for a dance. She just sang like something was breaking inside her, and country music hasn't been the same since. There are moments in country music when the audience shifts before the industry even notices. For Ella Langley, that moment arrived on a night when she stood in front of a crowd that didn't yet know her name and left it unable to forget her. It wasn't a headline slot or a major award show performance that first put her on the map. It was something smaller, rawer, and far more telling. A live moment where her voice cracked open.
I wouldn't smoke. No, I wouldn't need to. I need something to calm my nerves. I just hold you between my fingertips.
And the room went still. What made that night different wasn't polish. Ella Langley didn't arrive with the glossy, radio-ready presentation country newcomers are often pushed into. She arrived sounding like someone who had lived every lyric she sang, delivering lines with a rasp and a weight that didn't match her age or her relatively short time in the industry. Fans in the crowd weren't just watching a performance, they were watching someone process something in real time, and that vulnerability translated instantly into connection. Clips from the performance spread quickly, not because of a marketing push, but because listeners couldn't stop sharing something that felt genuinely different from the rest of the country charts. In an era where much of mainstream country leans polished and formulaic, Ella's rougher edges and emotional honesty stood out as something audiences didn't know they were craving until they heard it. That night became the unofficial starting point of her rise. Not a single that topped charts, not a viral dance trend, but a raw, human moment that made people ask, "Who is this? And why does she sound like she means every word?" They were craving until they heard it. That night became the unofficial starting point of her rise. Not a single that topped charts, not a viral dance trend, but a raw, human moment that made people ask, "Who is this? And why does she sound like she means every word?" It set the tone for everything that would follow in her career. An artist who built her following not through spectacle, but through the discomforting, magnetic honesty of her voice. To understand how she got to that stage, though, means going back much further than the spotlight, back to where that voice and that hunger first started taking shape. Long before that breakout night, Ella Langley's story started in small-town Alabama, in a household steeped in the kind of country music that doesn't get made for radio charts, the kind passed down through family gatherings, church pews, and porches, where singing wasn't a career goal, but a way of life. Growing up surrounded by traditional country and gospel influences gave her an ear for authenticity early, long before she understood it as a musical philosophy. It was simply how she experienced emotion and storytelling. As a teenager, Ella began writing songs not as a strategic career move, but as an outlet. Working through the ordinary chaos of growing up, heartbreak, restlessness, small-town boredom, the pull between staying rooted and wanting more. That instinct to turn personal experience into lyrics became the foundation of her artistic identity, one that would remain intact even as her career scaled up. Like so many aspiring country artists before her, Ella eventually set her sights on Nashville, the undisputed epicenter of the genre. But breaking into Music City is notoriously difficult, filled with thousands of talented hopefuls competing for a small number of real opportunities. Rather than waiting to be discovered, Ella took an active role in building her own path, playing local shows, writing constantly, and slowly building a reputation as an artist with a distinct, lived-in voice rather than a manufactured one. Her rise wasn't fueled by an industry machine pushing her forward from day one. It was built gradually, through grinding out performances, sharpening her songwriting, and refusing to sand down the roughness that made her sound different from her peers. That slow-burn foundation, an authentic Alabama upbringing paired with real Nashville hustle, gave her music a credibility that couldn't be manufactured in a boardroom. By the time opportunity finally arrived, Ella wasn't an artist being shaped by the industry. She was an artist who had already shaped herself, ready for the moment that would introduce her. Slow grind suddenly accelerates, and for Ella Langley, that moment came when her music finally found its way to an audience far larger than the rooms she'd been playing in Nashville. It wasn't an overnight discovery in the traditional sense. It was the culmination of years of writing and performing, colliding with the right song at the right cultural moment, delivered in exactly the right voice. Her breakthrough single captured something a lot of contemporary country music had been missing: unfiltered emotional honesty, paired with a rough, distinctive vocal delivery that refused to be smoothed into a generic radio sound. Rather than chasing a crossover pop country formula, Ella leaned into rawness, twangy, imperfect, deeply felt, and it turned out to be exactly what a hungry corner of the country audience wanted. Listeners who had grown tired of glossy, overproduced country hits found something refreshingly real in her sound. Streaming platforms and social media accelerated the momentum in ways traditional radio rollout never could have. Short clips of her singing, often stripped down and emotionally raw, spread rapidly, introducing her to listeners far beyond traditional country strongholds. Far beyond traditional country strongholds. The breakthrough wasn't confined to one demographic or region. It cut across audiences who didn't typically follow mainstream country, drawn in by the authenticity rather than genre loyalty alone. As streaming numbers climbed and her name started appearing in conversations about country music's next major star, industry attention followed. Labels, media outlets, and fellow artists began taking notice of someone who had built momentum organically, without relying on an industry-manufactured origin story. That authenticity became central to her appeal. She wasn't being sold to audiences as the next big thing. She was becoming it in real time, driven by genuine listener response. The breakthrough validated everything Ella had built quietly over years of hustle, that a distinctive, honest voice could still cut through in an industry often accused of favoring formula over feeling. But her rise wasn't just about timing or a single hit song. It raised a deeper question that would come to define her career. What exactly was it about her voice that made listeners feel something so different from everything else? If Ella Langley's voice is what draws listeners in, it's the emotional territory she explores that keeps them there. And nowhere is that more evident than in the recurring theme critics and fans alike have come to call her emotional hangover sound. Much of her music doesn't dwell in tidy heartbreak narratives with clear beginnings, middles, and resolutions. Instead, it lingers in the messy, disorienting aftermath. The morning after ache, the regret tangled with longing, the confusion of still wanting someone you know is bad for you. This emotional territory taps into something country music has always done well, but rarely with this level of rawness, capturing the specific, uncomfortable feeling of emotional whiplash. Rather than romanticizing heartbreak into something poetic and resolved, Ella's songwriting often sits in the discomfort itself, mirroring how real emotional pain actually feels: unresolved, contradictory, and hard to shake even when you know better. That thematic honesty extends to how she handles vice and self-destruction in her lyrics. Songs that reference drinking, Bad decisions or messy relationships aren't framed as cautionary tales or glamorized escapism. They're framed as lived experience, delivered without judgment or a neatly packaged lesson at the end. This refusal to sanitize her narratives gives her music an authenticity that resonates particularly strongly with younger listeners navigating their own complicated relationships and decisions. The emotional hangover concept also reflects a broader shift in what audiences are seeking from country music. Rather than aspirational storytelling or feel-good anthems, there's a growing appetite for music that mirrors the genuinely messy parts of adulthood, the mornings after regretted decisions, the relationships that don't fit into a simple narrative of right or wrong. Ella's willingness to sit in that discomfort rather than resolve it for the listener is part of what separates her from more conventional country songwriting. It's a delicate balance to strike. It's a delicate balance to strike, emotionally raw enough to feel real, but crafted well enough to remain compelling, rather than simply bleak. Ella has managed that balance by grounding even her messiest lyrical themes in specific, vivid detail, rather than vague sentimentality. And that same instinct, blending something deeply traditional in feeling with something distinctly modern in execution, would go on to define not just her lyrics, but her entire. Ella Langley's sound occupies a distinctive space in today's country landscape, deeply rooted in tradition, yet unmistakably shaped by modern sensibilities. It's a balance that many artists attempt, but few pull off convincingly, and it's become one of the defining characteristics of her musical identity. Where much of contemporary country either leans heavily into pop crossover territory or retreats into strict traditionalism, Ella's music manages to hold both instincts at once without feeling like a compromise. The old country heart in her sound comes through in her instrumentation and phrasing. Twangy guitar tones, storytelling structures, and vocal cadences that echo country's classic era, rather than its current pop-leaning trends. There's a rootedness to her music that feels intentional, a clear reverence for the genre's history, rather than a superficial nod to it for aesthetic purposes. At the same time, her music doesn't feel like a nostalgia act. The production choices, lyrical themes, and emotional rawness she brings feel distinctly contemporary, speaking to modern relationships, modern vices, and the messier, less romanticized realities of adulthood today. This modern edge keeps her music from feeling like a museum piece. Instead, it feels like a living continuation of country's storytelling tradition, updated for a generation navigating very different emotional terrain than previous eras. This blending has also helped her music cut across generational lines in a way that's increasingly rare. Older country fans recognize the authenticity and traditional instincts in her sound, while younger listeners connect with the emotional bluntness and modern themes she explores. That crossover appeal has widened her audience considerably, positioning her not just as a rising star within traditional country circles, but as an artist capable of pulling in listeners who don't typically gravitate toward the genre. As Ella Langley's momentum continues to build, the conversation around her has shifted from, "Who is this rising artist?" to "How big can she become?" Few artists manage to break through with both critical respect and genuine commercial traction this early in their career. But Ella has positioned herself at that rare intersection, earning credibility with longtime country purists, while simultaneously pulling in a broader, younger audience, hungry for authenticity. What makes her trajectory particularly compelling is that her rise hasn't relied on chasing trends or reshaping her sound to fit shifting industry expectations. If anything, her success suggests the opposite lesson, that audiences are craving more rawness and honesty, not less, even as much of the industry continues optimizing for polish and mass appeal. Should that appetite continue growing, Ella is uniquely positioned to benefit, having built her entire identity around the very qualities other artists are only beginning to lean into. There's also room for evolution without compromising what makes her distinct. Artists who build their identity around emotional honesty often face pressure to either repeat a winning formula indefinitely or dilute it in pursuit of broader appeal. Ella's challenge going forward will be continuing to explore new emotional and musical territory while preserving the rawness that made listeners connect with her in the first place. Early signs suggest she understands that balance, favoring depth and authenticity over chasing short-term trends. Industry recognition, larger collaborations, and bigger stages all seem like natural next steps, but what will likely determine her long-term staying power isn't chart performance alone. It's whether she continues writing and singing like someone who means every word, refusing to let bigger platforms sand down the very qualities that got her. If her career so far is any indication, Ella Langley isn't interested in fitting into country music's existing mold. She's carving out her own space within it, one raw, emotionally honest song at a time, and if that trajectory holds, her rise may be remembered not just as a breakout moment, but as a genuine shift in what audiences expect from country music. Ella Langley's rise isn't a story of overnight fame or industry engineering. It's the story of an artist who stayed true to a sound rooted in Alabama porches and old country tradition, even as she found her way onto bigger stages than she ever set out to fill. From that first breakout night to the raw, unresolved honesty running through every verse since, her appeal has never come from polish. It comes from a voice that sounds like it means every word and a willingness to sit in the mess rather than tie it up. That's why her songs hit different, and it's why, as her career keeps unfolding, listeners will keep leaning in to hear what she says next. What do you think about Ella Langley? Have you listened to her music yet? Let us know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories about the biggest names in music. Thanks for watching.